Welcome to the 11th episode of The View from Here. Today is Thursday, June the 29th, 2017, and in keeping with the theme that I start with, I kept my hat on because it's very much belongs with the whole subject. Some lighter topics here. We're honoring the start of summer in the beautiful Monadnock area, and then some clever wordplay that comes after that, and then we will end with an interview, the third one, citizen interview with retired dental surgeon Leonard Weldon. And so first of all, what I came up with in thinking about what I have here, the element is surprise. For example, 2 days ago, Tuesday, I was ready to pick up my ride. I transport people for medical reasons for an agency here. And as I was waiting for him, a few minutes before 12 o'clock, it was one of those days where we had sunshine and clouds, but suddenly there, it was an unbelievable cloud burst. I sat in my car and it sounded like hammering, literally hammering on the roof. It was the Niagara Falls coming down on the roof of my car. It lasted only a few minutes, but I don't know how much water might have actually come down in those few minutes. And then, surprise, my ride comes out of the door and he gets to the car dry because this lasted only a few minutes. We drive for about 10 minutes south on Route 12, and there the roads were not even wet and the sun was shining. So it seems to be the kind of weather we have. It's a season of surprise. And now the first slide, the first photo we'll see today, indeed, is right on that theme of surprise. This was taken last Sunday at CVS in Keene on West Street by somebody who sat in her car. Her name is Robin Allen. The photo was published in the Sentinel, but even better photos that she took than were published in the Sentinel are visible on the Sentinel's website, and I took this one from there, and an amazing place for a bear to appear on the middle of the day. Let's go to the next slide. Here is an even better one taken from her car, a frontal picture. I believe there is no other picture of bears in Keene that I remember in the almost 30 years I've lived here, and sometimes bears do appear in Keene, as like this one, from this close by. What an amazing shot. Thank you, Robin, for sharing that with us and for being there with the camera to take that shot. This is only 5 to 10 minutes walking away from where I live, and so those were the two bear pictures. And now we're going to go to look a little further at where this takes place, and we're going to go to this map here. The bear appeared. What you're looking at is the center of Keene. This is Central Square. Here is Island Street. CVS is right there on that corner. Now, as you can see, the Ashuelot River comes down, goes under West Street, comes very close to my apartments here this way. The bear must have come down in this wild area along the river. And it's amazing how our city councilors had the wisdom in history to feel that that area should be preserved because it's a fantastic, wonderful, wild area. There is a footpath, bicycle path next to it. Lots of people enjoy that. The other side of the river here, which once with my wife years ago, we cut through and bushwhacked here. This is even wilder because this is not something people where people walk around. It's a beautiful area, and that is probably how the bear came down to West Street. I still would like to know whether he actually crossed West Street or whether went under the bridge there, which would have been possible too. Anyway, so this is enough about bears. And now I want to go a little further, and I'm going to show you part of this map. We're going to take this one out. So what I want you to realize is that yellow circle is 1 mile from Central Square, okay? So that is basically the central part of the city. Now we're going to go to the next one, and which was taken from Google right this morning. Does that work for you? Yeah? All right. Great. We have a little close-up close to the area. Now, where the bear appeared on West Street was just about here above the map. Here is Island Street and Hooper Street. The bear was about here. But here is the Ashuelot River, close to where I live. Now we're going to go back because we had several times talked about my 1 mile walk in the morning. A couple more surprises I want to show you. This is where I start, apartments behind McDonald's right here. And then I cross over, I follow Pearl Street, and then I take a left on Meadow Street here. I go right on Lee Street, left on Sid Street, and then at this point, let us now go to the next shot, which is where paved roads come to an end, and where you will see the beginning of Blaine Road. There it is. That is really kind of a surprise. No more pavement. Then there is a narrow 1-lane dirt road. And I did some research on this. The interesting part is that within that yellow circle that you saw on the previous map, 1 mile from the square, there is no other dirt road in Keene. Blaine Road is the only one. And if you don't know this, it's kind of a surprise when you come up on it. You follow that dirt road, there's one house that has an address on Blaine Road. One house. But as you walk down that road, and we go to the next slide now, you will see a surprise that only started about a year ago. There is a new development under construction. Here you're seeing the back end of it, and it's kind of fun when you think of the people who will be living there. Their back little patios look out on this wonderful 1-lane dirt road, right within a mile of Central Square in Keene. And then we go to the next photo, and that is the front view of the same development on Lee Street. And of course, that Lee Street is paved, and then there is a little bridge that they just built, that balustrade on the side of the bridge, and you can still see this is under construction. Some of the siding isn't finished. There are going to be 12 units there, I believe. And this whole pocket of Keene, okay, we can cut that now. This whole pocket of Keene is incredibly quiet somehow. A lot of rental units, but a few shops, and because there are the bypass closes in that area. The bypass on this map, if we go back to this map for a moment, the bypass is here 12 here, and then further down 101. So there's an entrance here and there's an entrance up there, but this whole area is very quiet because it has no through traffic except some of it on Pearl Street. They take a shortcut there because Island Street can be too busy. But I see very few cars on my road. So now we can go back to this, right? So we are, now we were here. So I follow on my, cut over the apartment buildings here called Princeton Woods. And then here is the car wash that many people know on Key Road. Then I go into this development. Then there is a footpath here crossing a large meadow, and a wooden bridge, which we have talked about before, because there's a very nice little brook here. And Keene Housing's development here, which is new in the last couple of years, is called Brookbend. And that is named after that brook, which is developing wonderfully, wildly right along the brook. I love looking at that. Then we're going to our next still picture of Mount Monadnock now. And that will be appearing here. Mount Monadnock is visible from that open meadow that I cross on that footpath that I mentioned. And what you're looking at right now is a view. There's a nice cute little cloud on top of the mountain, as it often has, kind of giving it a little halo. And we do admire Monadnock somehow in this area as the one mountain we have. It somehow inspires all of us. And I must admit, I used my zoom lens to create this picture because with your naked eye, you do not see the mountain quite this prominently. It's there, but the zoom will bring it forward, as it were, so it kind of distorts the what you see with the ordinary eye, but it's kind of nice to bring the mountain into view. And what you're looking at there is the back of the cinemas, part of the Key Road shopping complex. That's what you're seeing the back of. All right, so that takes care of that one. And I can see that I'm out of time to get to the other things, which I'll bring in the next program. So we'll just go right on now to the video interview. And next time we'll show you what I didn't have time for. Well, today I have with me in my living room my friend Leonard Weldon, and he is going to be Citizen Survey number 3, and I'm going to ask him to fill you in on what he could say his name again, the town he lives in, occupation, etc.
Well, hi, and thanks, Gerhard, for this opportunity, of course. I am Leonard Weldon. I live in Keene, New Hampshire. I love it here. I'm an oral and maxillofacial surgeon, although I'm on my way to retiring, at least from this community. And I'm also a writer, which I'm hoping to spend more time at and be a little more prolific at. And I am somewhat of a budding entrepreneur, hoping to help others kind of see their way in the economic world. That's pretty much it.
Well, I feel I need to add to that you write some amazing poems too, and that you have published a book of poems which I have and which I have enjoyed.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to try to recall a poem actually when it's appropriate. I know there's one poem that could become appropriate.
I see. All right. Here are the 4 questions. Number 1, what do you think are the 1 or 2 most troubling issues facing the United States?
Well, I think I've said to you in the past or recently how important I think for the United States and the world is global heating, or known as global warming. And I think that is essential. I think there will become a lot of issues, as there are some emerging now from global heating. And the other thing that's really, there are so many in the United States right now, I think, that are really pressing, but I'm going to use concentration of wealth as a bigger umbrella to even how this wealth is spent within politics. You know, that may look like 2 different subjects or 2 different concerns, but I think this concentration of wealth and how it's spent on influencing politics, therefore campaign finance reform, I think, is a huge issue towards this democracy, which would also even kind of dictate some things to the very wealthy. So this money concentration and its influence on politics.
Thank you. Well, that already is probably most of the answer, or part of the answer of number 2. What do you think should be done to resolve these issues?
And I'm so glad to answer this, and I am working on this on a personal level as well. With regards to global warming, I think we need to stop fossil fuels or carbon-based fuels as soon as possible. And how does one do that? And I have some friends who are going to throw a tomato at me when I say we need to get back to nuclear energy in the short term. Not necessarily something that would lead to plutonium, such as uranium-235. And that is a really sort of a steam-based nuclear energy. The other fissionable material is thorium. And thorium, much safer. You get very little plutonium with it. You produce a lot more energy. In fact, you consume the thorium as in uranium. You don't really consume. You consume a very small percentage of it when you generate electricity. So that has to come so we can get off carbon fuels now, because we're approaching, I think, 450 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And of course, we're worried about methane gases and other things. So one is to get off CO2 now, and I'm working and studying thorium, and as soon as I can push a little harder with free time, I'm going to see if we can't make that develop. Another thing, of course, is this is a political issue as well. So we have to convince people in industry and politics to really slow down quickly. I think we have to educate people. I don't think enough people really realize the significance of global heating or the consequences of it, whether it be just mass migration, mass extinction, changing of how the whole biosystem, the Gaia of this planet works. So on a personal level, it's being as strict with oneself as one can be with regards to spending fossil fuels for heat or driving, or even fossil fuels that are used in clothing and other kinds of use of fossil fuels. And education is so important, educating our neighbors and convincing our politicians of the real importance of this. There are other suggestions for kind of slowing things down, and one is, even if you look at what happened what happens when volcanoes erupt, they spew sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, and actually that turns out to slow down the heating of the planet. It cools it for a while, about 3 years actually, and then of course we get a rain of sulfuric acid, because sulfur dioxide will turn into sulfuric acid in the atmosphere and then rain on us. But actually sulfuric acid may be a little less damaging to the oceans than when carbon is absorbed by the oceans and becomes carbonic acid. So there's a little trade-off there. So some people think that even putting sulfur dioxide droplets into the atmosphere, there are people talking about having a big shield about 10 miles in diameter that would kind of go around the sun to sort of block some of the intensity. But there are other things, of course, things that the roofs should be white to absorb, and parking lots white to reflect rather than absorb heat. And it's really complicated. I think the biggest thing to do is to convince the human race and the political leaders, and have a will from the populace and the governments to act quickly. I think we have less time than most people can imagine. We have very little time, actually. The next part of that is, of course, this concentration of wealth, and that really takes a political will, unless we as humans aren't going to take it on ourselves and just behave better about it. And so concentration of wealth, it really has to do oftentimes with what laws are in place. And oftentimes the laws are in place to kind of structure how money is accumulated or how one can earn money. Those laws are oftentimes enacted because of some influence by very wealthy persons or wealthy entities. And I'm just going to cross over into the political realm, because it's really about wealth influencing policy. And of course that comes to even allowing corporations to have a vote as if they were human. And we know that occurred in the Supreme Court allowed this. I can't remember about what the year was, but really an important decision to allow corporations to have that power to vote and to spend as much money, well, not the power to vote, but to spend as much money as they want on political campaigns. And of course, if you look at a political campaign, you have to wonder where the truth lies, because so then they're spending on monies on really a bunch of non-truths, it seems like to me, or lies actually. And we as a populace oftentimes aren't really kind of parsing that out and finding what the truth is. There are studies done that say that if you tell a non-truth long enough, and perhaps loud enough, which may mean even kind of shouting at people who are trying to tell the truth, it almost converts in the mind's eye or the public's mind to become a truth. So it's getting pretty muddled. And as a poet, I wrote this poem called Truth Be Told. And this, essentially the poem has said, if you seek to live free, if you seek to lead, if you seek equality and justice, you have to love truth. Without truth, all is lost. And one could take it one step backwards and say, maybe we should really work on the truth of knowing our history, ourselves as a human race, as a population, as a society, as a culture. And I think we have a fine culture and a fine bunch of people who are optimistic and positive. We have allowed some sinister kind of behavior to creep into our beautiful culture. And we have to stop that so that we can kind of lead the world. We are a world leader now, not in any way that's not humble, but a world leader in that we have this technology and this infrastructure for helping and this wealth. We have to have this integrity and this beauty about us so that we can help change. So money is a real problem. And the Glass-Steagall Act is no longer in force, which really kind of held back some misbehavior by banks and others. And still this Dodd-Frank is in place, but people are talking about cutting that back in the Trump administration. So we have to protect at least that Dodd-Frank and get to the Glass-Steagall. I think in the 70s, I think it is Robert Reich, I think a beautiful economist who talks about how the middle class was pretty strong in the 70s. And once some of the regulations were taken away, that allowed concentration of wealth, the diminution of the middle class, and less opportunity. And let there be no mistake, this wealth may be even tried into some sort of prejudices out there. There are some benefits of wealth, whether it be an educational or even a sort of commercial kind of way for people of wealth, easier than people who have non-wealth or people of color or people of a different religion. We have some real prejudicial kinds of prejudicial underpinnings to some of the decisions made within our culture that have to change. And again, that ties into wealth. The stronger the middle class, the bigger the middle class, the better. And we have to really have this be a country where there is opportunity for all and not just words, because I think they're just words now. For
That sounds like a very wonderful way of summarizing what needs to be done, what you just said. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And then we're going to the last question. Seeing all the bad news that, there's good news and a lot of bad news that comes our way, what do you do in your personal life to counterbalance the bad news, the heaviness of so many things that are around us? In other words, what activities make you happy and nourish your spirit?
Thank you for that question too. I would say almost first and foremost, I am trying to behave as a loving being. I begin my day with a couple of simple proclamations to the divine. I don't have a specific religion, but I believe in this divinity that is just love. And so I usually, if I don't forget, and I almost never forget this, I always say, let me be peaceful, let me promulgate peace, let me be loving and kind. That's one of the first things. I want to treat everyone with love and kindness. And the second thing I usually say is, let me help heal this planet, help heal a person that I come in contact with. And my third part is, please help me to express my creativity in the form of perhaps entrepreneurial endeavors, so that there is work with good wages in good working environments, because I think work brings dignity. So I begin my day that way, and then I try to act that way all the way through my day, to be truthful and direct and kind and loving. And then the second thing I'm doing almost daily, I'm trying to educate myself so that I do know the facts. And I also remind myself to remain open and flexible and plastic. Plasticity in the brain helps keep one young, but it also allows you to see yourself. Perhaps some of my thoughts are incorrect. So I listen to people like Gerhard and many others, and I read broadly so that I can find out where the truth is and act appropriately. I am in 2 reading groups, both of which talk about this. There's kind of specific in a way to, in one is I'm learning about what Rudolf Steiner wrote, but we are talking about Michael right now. And prior to that, we had a book called Love and Its Meaning in the World. And another one that talked about how we actually form our morality. So it's helping me to understand this, to perhaps change myself and also to maybe influence people. Sometimes I imagine myself as a Michaelic force, and if that's not clear to anybody, it's really a way of standing up with courage to face power, maybe, and with truth. So I am at times gathering with other people to strategize about what to do. I am investing money in things that will bring down the carbon footprint. I have a little extra money, and I'm investing in that, and also to make sure that the businesses I invest in are really respectful for human beings. And on a personal level, I'm trying to cut my carbon footprint a little bit, and I am behaving with money and trying to politically be active to elect people other than what we have. I may consider even running for office sometime, although it seems like it's such a pressure cooker kind of a job. I honor those people who are working hard at this, because it is an endless task to maintain one's balance and integrity in our political system. I would like to see lobbyists disappear. That's one of the things that I would like, and I'm trying not to encourage that at all.
All right. Well, thank you. That's a very interesting total description of what you are doing. Thank you so much, and we hope to have this on soon on Community TV.
You're so welcome.
We had to cut that just a hair, but basically I thanked him for being there, and we hope to see you for the next episode, number 12, and thank you for being here today.